Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Gray, the Director of Programming for the New York Times live conversation and performance series TimesTalks, and our new film series, ScreenTimes, which hosts exclusive screenings of the most anticipated and culturally relevant movies, television shows, documentaries, indies, streaming originals, and more. I'm delighted to welcome you to tonight's post-screening conversation with actors Margot Robbie and Sebastian Stan and the film's director, Craig Gillespie, who are here to talk about one of the 20th century's most gripping true-life tale and the absurd, irreverent, and piercing portrayal of Harding's life and career in all of its unchecked and checkered glory. Moderating tonight's conversation and all events in our ScreenTimes series is veteran Times reporter and self-proclaimed film fanatic Logan Hill. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Logan Hill, Sebastian Stan, Craig Gillespie, and Margot Robbie.
Thank you.
I've been hearing that one for you, I think.
Is that right? I guess we didn't last time. Thank you, everyone.
I think they like the movie.
I think so. Did you guys like it?
They like Margot.
Awesome.
Thank you all for coming. As you know, this is our new series at the Times. This is just 6 months old, and we've been lucky enough to book some of my personal favorite films of the year. And it's just great to be able to share them with you, and then to get to talk to such wonderful folks. We thank you for buying the tickets, because you're helping us build this series into a tradition we hope is going to continue. And we thank everybody for logging on to Facebook. Thanks for watching from wherever you are. If you have any questions online, you can put them in the comments, and then I'll be interrupted at some point, and I will ask them to you. You know, the series has really turned out great. We had Guillermo del Toro here on Monday, and backstage, I just found out that Margot and Guillermo share a very special connection.
We do. Guillermo is now the proud owner of my old rat. Rat.
Is Rat the name of the rat?
Yes, very original. I didn't have a lot of time to think of one. Yes, so Rat was a gift. While I was doing Suicide Squad, I got given Rat. And then when the homeowners of the house I was renting in Toronto found out that I had a pet rat, eventually, they cottoned on eventually, and then they said, like, either you got to go or the rat's got to go. So Rat then went to Jai Courtney, another actor in the film, and then he got sick of Rat, and then it went to one of the girls that worked in the wardrobe department, and then she got sick of Rat, or Rat and her cat didn't get along or something like that, and she had just worked on Guillermo's film, and so she Crimson Peak, and then she gave it to Guillermo. So as far as I know, Rat's still like living it up. I was like, Rat's such like a fame whore. Like he's just gone from like, he was like, ugh, sick of you, Jai Courtney, oh, this is fun. Now he's like off living in Guillermo del Toro's house in Toronto. Good on
We just
him.
have to book the next Times talk with whoever Guillermo then gives the rat.
Yeah, who knows where Rat is now? Maybe he ditched Guillermo months ago. I don't know.
We're really this is I'll admit, this is one of those movies, Craig. I saw the log line for this movie. I knew it was coming out, and I thought, well, what is there really a movie there? You know, like we've seen the documentary, we know the story. Where's the movie in this? Is it going to be enough? What was it about the script that convinced you this is really a movie?
I had the same reaction.
Yeah.
When my agent sent me this script, but he called me and he said, "Hey, I'm sending you this script about Tonya Harding," and literally I went through this rapid-fire response in my head of like, I'm not doing I just had done 2 biopics, going back and revisiting another one, and I thought this story had been told, and I didn't think there'd be that much to it. And then he finished the sentence starring Margot Robbie. And I was like, that is just so intriguing. The idea of Margot playing that role, I was just like mesmerized by it. And I thought, you know, she does drama and she does comedy so well and does that dance so beautifully. But staying like empathetic and caring about her and not playing up the comedy for the sacrifice of the character and like all the work that I knew her with. I didn't know, you know, how she would be doing this necessarily, but I was so intrigued by it. And then I read the script, and it's unbelievably crazy and outrageous, as you guys get a sense. And that combination of her and the script, I was begging for it. It took a while. I had to go and convince Margot, she's a producer on this. And Brian Unclis and Tom and Stephen, the writer, is also a producer. So I met with them all separately and gave them my pitch. And we all had like-minded ideas for what we wanted to do.
Yeah, as you're producing, I mean, you're not just producing films for other people. Like one of the big, you are producing projects for other folks to star in as well.
Yeah.
But when you think about the kind of projects you want to make available for yourself to play a role in, what are there certain things you're looking for? Or are you just kind of looking for good material wherever it comes?
Always looking for good material, whether it's something that I could star in or not. But there's some roles that I read and I feel like, honestly, sometimes I read it and I just know that another actress would play it better than I can. And I don't really know how to explain which ones they are, but often my team have been like, why are you passing on this script? It's amazing. I'm like, oh, I know it's amazing. No doubt this will be a successful film, but I know there's someone out there who would actually do a better job than me and I shouldn't take that role. And it frustrates them, but yeah, so there's some roles that, and then also there's some roles like this role, to be honest, I was like, I want it so bad. I'm also really, really scared that I can't pull it off. But when I have that feeling, it's like, that's the role that I should go for. When I really, really want it and I'm scared of it as well, then I know that I have to.
I wonder, like, what fears all of you had about this film. I mean, there's obviously things that can go wrong in any movie, right? What's the fear that Sebastian, that you get this part wrong?
I mean, listen, there were a lot of fears for me, for sure. But I think just the fact that there were real people for me, I never really played anybody that was a real person. So the fact that having to mold yourself to something that already was out there and existed in a way, and he looked and spoke and acted apparently very specifically. So that was very scary. And then, reading the script. I mean, I really, as an actor, I was like really entertained by it, and I was very engrossed in it, and I had, I was obsessing about it already. I was already kind of thinking about it, but as the human part of you is always kind of like immediately forming judgments and preconceived ideas and but which is essentially what was out there about them anyway. Like, a lot of noise as to, many different takes on who they were and who did what and whatever, and so. It actually kind of felt in a way that it was appropriate for me to have that at the beginning, and then once you commit to the project, then you kind of have to let all that go and just do your job.
Was that slipperiness scary? Like trying to figure out that balance of do we stick to one story? Do we tell one part of the story? Do we admit that there are these contradictory narratives? How resolving that problem seems like it must have been tough.
It was, it was a sort of a fascinating dilemma because the structure is so crazy, and having these disparate points of view, I kept trying to find film references. And one of the first things I went to was To Die For, which back in 1987 with Gus Van Sant and Nicole Kidman, and they do these interviews, but it's a very linear situation. They're all talking about the same story. There's no conflicting accounts. But that was about as close. But we've got conflicting accounts. We're breaking the fourth wall. They're arguing in the interviews with each other. There's this sort of meta-awareness. Like Allison's talking about the screenplay. I mean, it's everything. The whole kitchen sink is in there, and I couldn't find it. I mean, you find movies that have some of those elements, but they have the whole kitchen sink. So it was a little nerve-wracking to be like, all right, is this actually going to work? And I had these amazing actors. It's like the biggest challenge for me. I mean, having Margot to start just was an enormous security for me. And the other thing we had was Allison Janney, who was attached with the scripts. So.
Stephen Outrider wrote the role for Allison. They're friends.
Yeah, Stephen. So I felt I was so close to the finish line, but to get the third piece of this puzzle, which was Jeff Gillespie, that was the most stressful for me, because I thought these two were so strong in their corners, Allison and Margot, and we needed that third element. And they have such a tricky relationship and such a dangerous dance that they do. Until we found Sebastian, I couldn't really breathe easy. And once we had that. And once Sebastian came in and actually blew us away in an audition, which was amazing, and he read with Margot. And
what was so great about the audition?
It was wild. It was so fun.
It was really...
Did you come in with the mustache hard?
I did.
Came in mustache.
Really?
And a turtleneck.
Yeah.
He got it right there.
But he had this moment where we were doing one scene where he's kind of like, he says something like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And then he grabbed my face and kissed me right afterwards. And that wasn't even in the script, but it was so like, It was. I was like, well, this guy's great. We should give him the job. He's awesome. No, but honestly,
Please don't take that quote out of context. This is like a lot of other stories we've been running at the time.
It's not. Okay. My husband is one of the producers on the job as well, so it's fine. It was what it was he was so reactionary. His emotions were bubbling right outside. Like there was nothing premeditated about the violence or the affection. Everything was reactionary, and no one had played Jeff like that. And Jeff didn't make sense in this format, in this story, to be this premeditated, calculated, ice-cold villain. He didn't know how to cope with his emotions, and that's what Sebastian showed us in that audition. And it was the second he walked out, Craig and I were trying to play it cool while I was in the room. We're like, thank you. And he walked out and we were like, oh my. Yes!
Meanwhile, I totally thought it was not going my way after.
Oh, it was going so
Yeah, because I remember like I got in there a little bit early or something, and I was like waiting, and I was like paranoid because I was like, I lost this character, I don't have it. And then like I walked in and it was so quick, but it was a blessing. You know, sometimes, actually, this movie taught me so much about that. But in terms of, you know, you always, if you can not audition, it's nice to not audition. But I actually find that in some instances, like in this particular situation, I was blessed that I got to do that because A, we found out how we can all work together, and B, I gained some confidence there that I could show up on set one day and then go like, okay, like at least everybody knows like what we're showing up with, you know, as opposed to that weird pressure you get sometimes where nobody has seen you. What's the take and whatever. So
you show up on set and you're doing the scenes, those days when you're really going at it, when they're throwing each other up against the walls, it gets violent. I mean, watching those scenes, I was like, it made me so uncomfortable. I think everybody in the audience, you're laughing, you're feeling guilty because you're laughing, you're not sure if you should let yourself laugh, you don't know if you should be horrified or if who you should believe. Yeah. What is it like playing on those days? What is it like acting out those scenes?
It was amazing because we had Craig, obviously. We had a director that we could trust implicitly, a director who knew exactly what he wanted, but was always open to something else as well. There were no boundaries, but at the same time, we had a very safe place, and it's really hard to get that exact temperature right on a set. I truly think it helps that we had a smaller set. It was a physically confining space working in that house, and it was brilliant. It was intimate, it was claustrophobic, it was cozy, but then it would be too much. You know, it was a really wonderful thing a really wonderful space to build our relationship in. But also to have a co-star, to have like an actor there with you, I feel like we work in quite a similar way. I feel like we both understand the buttons to push in each other to get to the next level in the scene, and always in a respectful way. And it was just such a good working relationship with everyone. And our DP was awesome. Like Craig had said from the beginning, it was another one of the things that blew us away when he came in, gave his take on the film. He's like, I want it to feel like the camera is catching up to what's happening. I don't want actors walking into a neat shot. I want I want the characters doing what they're doing, and the camera's only just catching it. And there should be this frenetic energy about that. And it's very, I mean, you don't consider it sometimes, but you need a DP who's willing to do that too, to let their work kind of be just like whatever happens in the moment. And Nico was like that, and all our department heads, everyone who worked on this film was happy to just get in there, roll your sleeves up, get dirty, and just like see what happens. Because honestly, sometimes it would escalate, and no one could understand or foresee what was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, even hair and makeup, you know, like we were jumping from decades. You know, from in the 80s and 90s to present, like back and forth, and she had, I think, 4 or 5 different wigs that were all timeline, and
they didn't take as long as Sebastian's mustache.
The mustache.
Not gonna ever live that down now. It's really,
I actually didn't.
Are you, when you talk about pushing buttons, right? I'm interested. Like, there's some kind of there's interesting questions this film raises, obviously, about what does it take to make a champion, like to bring out a terrific performance from somebody, to make a great performer. You know, my favorite quote from the movie is "skate wet."
Yeah.
That's an amazing line.
Improvised by Allison, that line.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
Oh my God, it's so great.
Yeah.
But I wonder, you know, are there parallels you see between that kind of pushing buttons?
Is Craig our stage mom?
Yeah, you know. Would he let you go to the bathroom?
I thought it worked.
We were allowed to go to the bathroom. Really nice.
Once a day.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's like I said, like knowing each other well enough to know how to provoke one another in a way that's going to bring out something positive is a very hard thing to gauge, I think. It was, well, honestly, I don't know if it's luck or fate or whatever that this specific group came together, but it is hard to find a group that can work like that.
I mean, you do hear those stories of directors who intentionally push buttons and manipulate situations psychologically to get certain kinds of performances out of people. Have you been in those situations yourself? What do you think of that world of things?
Such a loaded question.
I have, and I actually like it because it does get a better performance out of me.
Yeah.
I've found in the past, yeah.
I mean, I feel like I was so lucky with this because all of our actors, like the amount of prep that I think they all have felt the responsibility with these real people, and there's so much footage online that you can go to. So they all did their homework, and it's something that you kind of take for granted as a director that, you know, you hope they're going to do it, but you never know exactly what their discipline is. The amount of work that Margot did for this, from between the skating, she trained, you know, for 5 months and 3-4 times a week just doing that, but then so she's got that hurdle, and then she has to get all the physicality of Tonya because she's so well known in the media that you know it's going to be in your subconscious judging that she could pull this off. So in the Portland accent and the different ages, we were doing a scene at one time and we had Liz Halstein, who's the dialect coach, on set, and she'd very quickly duck in and be like, just bring your octave down a little bit. And I'm like, what is she talking about? And Margot's like, oh, I'm doing a different octave for 15 and 21 and 46. So, and you know, the same with, you know, Sebastian was listening for hours to, you know, Jeff's voice and getting that right and the context. And so they came in so prepared, but they had all of that arsenal, and then they could improvise. And, you know, they were so reactive to each other, or, you know, and say something and the other one would go right with it, but stay in character and stay on plot.
We were talking about the footage I was pulling up like on YouTube with like the little hammer footage, and you know, there's that on the NBC commentator is saying, you know, this bizarre real life movie continues as she's struggling with her shoelaces.
Yeah.
How much of that real life footage did you really study? I mean,
verbatim.
I could see. Yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of, especially that sequence, that's all, you know.
Exactly as it happened.
Exactly as it happened. Every like hand movement, everything's what she did, what Diane says right beforehand. Yeah, we kind of replicated those moments. Any moment that we thought people watching might have a sense of nostalgia or, you know, might remember, maybe not to that level of specificity, but still remember, we kind of replicated.
Yeah. And I have to ask, I know you've answered this question a million times with other reporters, but let's talk about real Tonya, real Jeff. I know you know, reached out to them and talked to both of them. Would you like to talk a little bit about sort of what was surprising about that process?
Yeah, Sebastian met Jeff. I met Tonya. Craig and I met Tonya actually at the same time. Do you want to talk about
And yeah, we kept it to that.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Where'd you meet?
He was in Portland, I think, not far from Tonya.
Yeah.
But you know, Craig at first like told me, he's like, look, if you want to go meet him, you should, and he's there. You don't have to. And you know, I went primarily because, again, like the footage that I found of him was really only, I think, him like minor things in the relationship in this Inside Edition, which is way after everything happened. But there was nothing of him like in his 20s. There was nothing of him now. No interview of him now. What did he look like now? Did he gain weight? Did he, you know, I don't know. How does he feel about the situation now? What did he want to be when he was a kid? You know, did he have girlfriends? You know, whatever. So all that stuff, and you know, the physicality I wanted to get from him, and that was the only reason I really wanted to meet with him. You know, it never really got much about, you know, is he going to tell me the truth or not, or you know, any of that stuff. It didn't really matter because the script is all we needed to follow.
So what did you learn about him?
Again, I mean, look, it's odd. You're studying someone for a long time, and then you go and they sit in front of you, and it's bizarre. It's a little bit like being in the Twilight Zone, and I think, you know, my own impression was that from the script really was always that it was somebody who was very ill-equipped to deal with with the circumstances that they, you know, found themselves in. The fame. I mean, there was a socio-economic situation there. They were very poor. They were literally growing up on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and suddenly they were faced with a lot of money. And so there was sort of ideas there that it just didn't seem to add up in terms of like thought about consequences or anything like that, and just overall somebody who didn't feel good about it. You know, I mean, the first thing he said to me was, why would you want to do this? Why would anybody want to see this movie, or why do you want to be a part of it? And you could see that was part of his weariness of revisiting this one highlight that came to define his life. And you know, I can't speak for him really, but like all those little things were just, you know, little kind of seeds to kind of get in there in some way. And at the very bottom of it all, as crazy of all the noise, it was clearly a love story of sorts. That I think was necessary, at least from my point of view, to kind of like approach, because otherwise there would have been too many judgments, and I would never have been able to show up on set, you know.
Right.
So
We actually were like halfway through shooting, and I remember like Craig and I looked at each other and we're like, this is actually a love story. This is like what Sebastian's bringing to it. It's I don't know, we're really all emotionally invested, at least on set. I don't know how people feel watching the movie, but on set, we're really emotionally investing in their relationship in a very strange way. But yeah, I mean, I just think Sebastian made him human.
And
He made
both
someone
of
that
you,
could
you know.
seem like a caricature, very.
And both of you guys, there's certainly moments that, you know, that aren't on the page that you get between them in these, you know, with the oh my's and, you know, getting ready for different events, and just the way that they would have these little moments you started to, and the complication of the domestic violence that was going on with them and how they would interact with each other. You understood this dangerous circle that they lived in.
and also he, you know, you don't really see it a lot in the movie, but he actually had a pretty bad upbringing himself, you know, and that's another thing about it that you take away from it. Like, you know, it seems to me we're always reacting the same way, going like, oh my God, here's the issue, and we never talk about the issue that it starts in childhood and it gets repeated, and it's always about kind of recreating that love that you sort of think you have by your caretaker, and how that gets translated to you. And you know, I think to some extent they were both victims of that.
And how was Tonya? Did she give you? I mean, I know I've read some of the other interviews. I know she told you, you know, like work on your core. Don't work, you know. I've
Do sit-ups.
do
Yeah.
sit-ups.
Good advice. I did. I started doing a lot of sit-ups. Yeah, no, well, unlike the situation Sebastian was in, there was a ton of footage of Tonya online. There was a documentary, so fortunately, for me, it was fortunate that it was made about her when she was 15, where you could never later in life, once she was under intense media scrutiny, ever get interviews as candid and honest and vulnerable.
In what
as
way?
when
Like,
she
I
was
haven't
15.
seen those. What are those like?
It's, well, you know, she's got the short hair like we kind of replicated, and she's quite open. It broke my heart how nonchalant she seemed, listing off something like, my mom's an alcoholic and she hits me and she beats me, and you know, as she seemed, it struck me how emotionally desensitized she was to the abuse at 15, and that was like the most important information to know for everything we did later for plotting out when she was in her 20s and when she's older. But to see that footage when she's 15, there was a million interviews and obviously the skate routines and stuff like that in her 20s, before the incident and after the incident, and then also later in life. And you know, later in life, you know, when she knew the camera was watching, it felt like she had, you know, a bit of a guard up and defiance as well, because people were starting to pick her apart a lot, I think. And then later in life, perhaps a bit of bitterness. But it was 3 very clear different stages of her life and stages of her personality and persona, and it was all very valuable. So I could study her. I studied her for like 6 months. I mean, I did nothing but watch these clips endlessly over and over and over. And even when I'd think I'd seen every single one, someone like in the costume department would mention like a sequined outfit, and I'm like, I've never seen that. Wait, I haven't seen that. There's a piece of footage I haven't seen. Show me where. And it'll be from like a Japanese outlet or something, and I'll be like, wow, there's footage I haven't seen. So I got to do all this study, and I could study her mannerisms, and her voice and her accent and everything, and do all my character prep I do with any character. I could do all that. I wanted to have all that done before meeting her. So it was right before we started shooting that Craig and I flew to Portland, and up until that point I had kept her and the character very separate, compartmentalized, and intentionally so. And when I met her, I just wanted to say, like, I'm playing a character. I'm not trying to replicate you specifically. We're embodying, you know, your story in this character, and I just need you to know that they're separate. Otherwise, I'm gonna, you know, be trying to sugarcoat things on set, and I don't want to do that. She was incredibly understanding about it. You know, we said this is not a traditional biopic, and this is not a documentary. It's a feature film, and she was great about it. Really, really understanding.
I thought amazingly trusting and open and gracious about it. And I was surprised because I thought I had a lot of trepidation that, you know, that she wouldn't want to revisit this again after 25 years and bring it all back. But she was like really trusting with us, and that gave us it gave me a lot of confidence in a way. It's like, because I felt in the script, and it was part of my goal with this film, I felt like from what Stephen wrote, I love this opportunity that she's being portrayed as this villain and this punchline in our society for 25 years. She's like the poster child. And just the idea to look at that with a different lens and look at her as a human being, I thought was a wonderful opportunity. And so I felt confident that we would do her well with this portrayal. I think what we were hoping to set out to do. But it was amazing that she was so trusting.
Yeah. Do you think there's sort of a third act for her? Do you think she, you know, like Nancy Kerrigan's gone on Dancing with the Stars and had all of that? Do you think Tonya will be back in the limelight? Do you think, I mean, after all of her struggles with fame, do you think she still has a taste for it in some way?
I have no idea. I would never even begin to predict what could happen. I have no idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
We've got some questions from Facebook,
Cool.
so here we go. Leo from Facebook asks, did you steal anything from the set after you finished the film?
I took so many scrunchies with me, and I still wear them. I love scrunchies, honestly. They're so good for your hair as well. Yeah, lots of scrunchies.
How about you? You're klepto?
But they gave me the mustache, and they put it on a piece of plaque on like a wood, and they called it the galooly. So I have that, I guess.
I didn't steal anything. I just had the slate, which is a classic director thing.
Yeah. Caitlin from Facebook asks, do you think class difference is its own character in this film?
Yeah, it's one of the issues. There's a lot of things that we kind of focus in, you know, the media, the 24-hour news cycle, classism. I think in Tonya's case, she was in a sport where people, like, you know, you'd hear the commentators say it as she was skating on the ice, like, and here's a girl from the wrong side of the tracks, or whatever they would you know,
literally say that.
preface it with.
Yeah.
And
she's had a tough life. And
yeah, had a real troubled life, and all, you know, it's like it felt as if they were never going to let her fit in, even if she was trying. And I think she stopped trying at some point and did the, you know, defiant, like, no, I'm not going to do the image of what you want. I'm not that, and I can't buy a $5,000 skate costume, and you know, it was all in the fabric of who she was.
Yeah, I think there was obviously classes involved, and it was you know, you felt that back then. There were the diehard supporters for her, and there's obviously a parallel, I think, between our culture and how it's exploded that way now and become even more disparate and more of a clash. And back then, the media, I think, tried to polarize that even more, because Nancy wasn't nearly as wealthy as they portrayed her. She was basically middle class, but they, you know, they put her on this pedestal and they shoved Tonya down, and they sort of created this spoon-fed images that they wanted us to, you know, to sell papers. And it was an interesting take on it. And I loved, you know, that there is this commentary, obviously, and we end in a fairly strong way with the commentary about America and the media and how they want somebody to hate and they want somebody to love. But obviously there's a commentary in the media, but I also felt it was a great opportunity to have a commentary on us as society, because we are the support, you know, we demand this, and we have the appetite
for scandal, and we eat it up.
Yeah, and it's like, if there wasn't that, you know, all of this you know, craziness wouldn't be going on.
Yeah.
I mean, for the two of you, you know, and franchises, Marvel, DC, when you see those cameras lining up outside the house and stalking Tonya in the film, do you have, I mean, and that's become a part of both of your lives right now, right? You go from on tour with these films from hotel to hotel, and people are chasing you down the street. How does it feel to be in the center of that, the eye of that attention right now in a different way? It does seem like things change when you're in a movie of the kind of scale that you've been playing in.
Yeah, it definitely struck me when looking through all this footage and seeing paparazzi shots of her, you know, sitting on a dumpster smoking a cigarette in between her shift waitressing. It's like she didn't have the financial resources to put up a wall and a boundary and keep herself protected. And it would have been so hard to have no support network emotionally and financially to deal with an intense amount of negative fame. It wasn't like, you know, it's really lovely when someone says like, oh my God, I love what you're doing or whatever. For the most part, if everyone's saying they hate you, like, and you have no way of protecting yourself and no one around you, like, trying to help you, it would have been horrific. I was really sad for her. And she was young. She was so young. We all kind of forgot that. I feel like Craig was like the first person to bring it up when we sat down meeting. He was like, God, she was really young when she went through all that. And I was like,
Valen from Facebook asked, what was your favorite scene in the movie? You each have favorite scenes?
what's your favorite scene, Craig?
Nice way to deflect. It's, I mean, the favorite scene would maybe not the right word, but the scene that there was two scenes really to me, and they were both scenes with these guys. The two scenes that we had the most difficulty with in casting, which was the first kiss. These guys having to play teenagers and really trying to figure out that body language and the way that they, you know, with Margot with her hands in the pockets and just that awkwardness and that sincerity, and we just couldn't crack it in the audition really, and then we just kept working on it, and then just evolved, and I thought it became a really beautiful scene. And then the polar opposite of that was the scene when he breaks into the apartment with the gun, and that's you know where we get to sort of the darkest place in their relationship, but where you know there's still this vulnerability and this pain in that scene, even though it's horrific, and trying to get that balance, which I think they did such a beautiful job with.
Yeah. Well, you know, like art's not the same kind of competition, but this is the season when films are competing, right? When everybody's going for the gold. There are awards being given out, and everybody's staging campaigns. I feel like in some ways you guys are this sort of Tonya Harding of the film scene right now.
The scrappy underdog.
Yeah, they're these very classy, very expensive movies
Yeah.
set in Italy and whatnot.
Is it,
You guys-
is it the wardrobe? What is it?
The double entendre. No.
You guys have your stonewashed jeans and your ZZ Top soundtrack.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've got a little Tanya spirit as you approach like this grueling awards season path ahead of you?
I kind of do. I mean, even when we joined with our distributors, Neon, and they're awesome, and they're a smaller company. And I remember when we had our first meetings, they're like, we're not the biggest company, but we care, and we do it grassroots, and we're like, well, that's how we made this film. I mean, we made this film in a tiny budget, and everyone just got in there. And I was like, at some point before we started shooting, and we were going through yet another budget, trying to cut it down, you know, you ask that question that you have to as producers, like, are we doing this story a disservice by making it at this cost? Should we just not do it at all? And we got to a point where we're like, no, I mean, this is her story. I mean, she's rough around the edges. She's scrappy, she's a fighter, she's resilient. She's not polished and perfect and planned out. So I was like, that's what the movie should be. And we did it. That's how we made it. It was rough around the edges and it was scrappy, but everyone cared so much.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone that's come on board, even after filming, Neon, whoever, everyone just cares so much. And yes, I do feel like we're kind of maybe the scrappy underdogs of this race. Yeah.
It's sort of been that way. I mean, because there is a knee-jerk reaction when you hear Tonya Harding, and from the get-go, it's always been certain like studios. I'm like, I don't know about Tonya Harding, and it's like, and then you get into the next phase of it, and then when we got to the music, and the knee-jerk reaction from bands was like, can we use your song? And they're like, no. We can't. And we just kept getting no's from people. And we had this amazing music supervisor, Susan Jacobs, who she's like, we're not going to take no. And like Dire Straits had said no, out of the gate. And she managed to track down Mark Knopfler, and she's like, you have to watch the movie. Yeah. And she made him watch the movie, and he emailed back and said, all right, you can use this song. And so it was like this constant like fighting for everything as we went along, and then the budget as well. It's like we actually chose to do this very specifically. We decided to go independent and make it with less money to have this freedom and this creative control to be able to tell the story the way we wanted it. So we always sort of went the outside route.
Yeah. Well, we're really so glad you shared it with us tonight. Thank you for coming, and thank you all of you for coming.
Thank you for watching it.
Thank you.
That was great.
Great.